Algebra 2, Worksheet 23.2. I'm going to start with number 4 here. And just to make things interesting, I'm doing this on a non-school day. And you may hear some noise in the background, which is the workers cutting the trees and trimming the trees. So why not make it really interesting? If you can hopefully hear me over all that, great. I don't think it's too loud, but we'll go with it. We'll run with it. So again, number 4, we're trying to find all the real roots and all the imaginary roots. Now, since it has imaginary roots, then our answers are probably going to have i's in them somewhere. And if you notice that we have these choices, we have these answers, the answer bank here, and some of them do have the i's in them. So probably those are going to be some of our answers here. The first thing they give us is this hint that it has a factor of 4x minus 1, which will give us one of the real roots. Now, the degree, since it's not factored yet, we're just going with the highest exponent, which is the 3. So we have a degree of 3. Now, this factor of 4x minus 1, if I put that equal to 0, will give me a real root. Add 1 to both sides, you get 4x equals 1, divide by 4, so I have a real root at 1/4. And it's real because there's no imaginary number on it. Now I have to get the imaginary roots. Which means I'm going to have to take this factor that I know, 4x minus 1, and divide it into 64x cubed minus 1, which means I'm going to have to set up one of my boxes. So on the left side, I have 4x minus 1 from the factor that we know. On the bottom, I'm going to have my 64x cubed. And remember, since there's no x squared, I want a 0x squared and a 0x, and then that minus 1 in the end. Now to start the box, remember that we always take this first term, 64x cubed, and place it right there. And we need something to multiply with 4x to give us this, which will be 16x squared times negative 1 is negative 16x squared. Then I need a positive x squared that will cancel this out and make it 0, which is positive 16x squared, which means this will be positive 4x. 4x times 4x is 16x squared. 4x times negative 1 is negative 4x. Then I need a positive 4x to make 0x. 4x minus 4x is 0x. 1 times this 4x is 4x. 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. The negative 1's match on the end, which means no remainder, which means I've done this correctly. So I'm left with, after dividing, 16x squared plus 4x plus 1. Now I have to factor that. Since it's a square, I'm going to have to factor it. Excuse me. Which means hopefully it'll factor nicely. So let's see. I know since this is the 1, we're going to go ahead and put 1s here because 1 times 1 is 1. That's the only thing that's going to work for the 1. And usually this works out where it's the exact same. So if I go ahead and put 4x and 4x, everything's plus, so I'm going to put addition on both. If I FOIL this just to check and see if I'm right, I'm going to have 4x times 4x, which is 16x squared. 4x times 1 is 4x. 1 times 4x is 4x. Add those. I'm not going to get this 4x in the middle, so this factoring isn't going to work. And if you kept trying, you're not going to get it to work. It would be, the only other factors would be 8 and 2. That's not going to give us 4 in the middle. 16 and 1 definitely won't work. So I've got to go to quadratic formula. So if I go to quadratic formula, remember negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Negative b, opposite of b, would be negative 4 plus or minus b squared. That's 4 squared is 16 minus 4 times a is 16. C is 1. All over 2a, 2 times 16 is going to be 32. And I'm quickly running out of room. Negative 4 plus or minus square root 16 minus, I don't have to worry about changing signs because these are both positives. So 16 minus 4 times 16 is 64 all over 2 times 16 is 32. And I'm going to go ahead and bring in my trusty notebook to continue from here. Negative 4 plus or minus, if I subtract 16 minus 64, that's going to give me a negative 48 over 32. Notice that we have a negative under the square root, which does mean we're going to get our I value. We're going to get the imaginary, because the square root of the negative gives us that imaginary number. So now, to simplify it, I'm going to go on the side here. We know it's going to have an I. So I'm just going to go ahead and put that I there. And now I'm going to treat it like a positive 48. Now, just to make things a little bit quicker, I know that 16 times 3 is 48. And I also know that we can take the square root of 16. I can't take the square root of 3, so that 3 stays here. What's the square root of 16? Well, that's 4, so that's going to go there. And now I just have to reduce all that. So I'm going to divide all of these by 4. 4 goes into everything. 4 goes into 4 once. That's a negative 1 plus or minus 1I square root 3. 4 into 32 is 8. I have to look at my question bank. Negative 1 plus or minus I square root 3 over 8. There it is. And since that was the result of factoring this, of doing quadratic formula with this, that gives me my imaginary roots, because those are, again, the ones with the i's on them. Negative 1 plus or minus I square root 3 over 8. I've got 2 imaginary roots because of the plus or minus. I've got 1 real root, which matches the degree, which is what we want. So I've got a degree of 3, a real root of 1/4, and imaginary roots at negative 1 plus or minus I times the square root of 3 all over 8.